Good evening and welcome to Mindful Money Moment with MarimorLife LLC. I am Kevette Minor Kane, your financial liberation expert, and I'm so glad to have you here joining me this evening. We're going to be talking about how women's health affects women's wealth. Our ability to focus on managing our money is affected by how we feel physically and how we are managing our wealth and our wellness and our health in order to make sure that we are wealthy in more than just the financial front of things. So you know that here on Mindful Money Moment, I focus in on being able to understand our emotions and how our emotions guide us into our money management so that we're able to make better decisions about the choices that we make concerning our financial decisions, and we're able to create better habits so that we can experience the life that we've dreamed of, make that our reality, and experience a higher quality of life overall. So I'm glad that you've joined me this evening. Thank you so much for being here. You can reach out to me at MarimorLife.com in order to get more information. If you like what you hear here, please feel free to like, share, comment, and subscribe. We're broadcasting live on both Facebook and YouTube, and we look forward to hearing your comments and to sharing more information with you based on the questions that you have. So feel free to share those as well in the comment section. So today I'm going to be having on the show with me Renee McDade is a poet, and she is also a wellness specialist. And so she's going to be coming to share with us some of her personal experiences concerning women's health. And we're also going to talk about how she is using her artistry and her creative outlet in order to motivate her self-care and to keep her well so that she can focus in on building the wealth beyond riches that she desires. So we're still celebrating Women's History Month. We are already halfway through March. The quarter of this year is almost over. The first quarter it's amazing. We're coming up on tax time. Thankfully, that's been a little extended for us, so you guys have some time to get that prepared and to make sure that you're taking care of everything you need. I believe that the deadline for the PPP loans is the end of March 31st. So make sure that you're reaching out to your financial professionals, your financial advisor, your CPA to get the assistance that you need with filing for that. You may qualify in ways that you didn't think that you did. So just ask the question. I know that I spoke with another colleague this week, and we were talking about how, sometimes we feel like we don't want to take on the burden of the additional money that we, feel like sometimes if we have money saved up, then we should use that. But the one thing I want to continue to encourage us as a community, ladies, is to make sure that we are being conscious of how we're using the money we have. There are 5 areas of mental of wellness, of mindset wellness that we need to be conscious of. And those include the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, the physical, and the financial. So taking care of those areas is something that we should continue to focus in on, making sure that what we're thinking is going to be positive so that our emotions and our feelings will then, have a positive, will allow us to be productive in our daily lives. And so that we're able to maintain our spiritual connections with, our creator as well as with one another, being able to then move into our physical wellness, paying attention to how we feel and being encouraged to maintain our physical wealth by eating well, as well as exercising and participating in some other activities like what Renee is going to share with us this evening. And then, of course, the financial side, making sure that we are tending to our budgeting routine and making sure that you are tracking your money. Keeping track of your money is how you keep control of your money to make sure that when it comes in, it doesn't grow wings and then fly away. And so then there's the 5 areas of finance that I work with you on, and those include organizing your credit, understanding how your credit is actually absolutely critical to being able to build a strong financial foundation, being able to manage your cash flow, understanding not only, what to do with the money that's coming in so that your income is greater than your expenses, but then also understanding that if your expenses are, outweighing the income, how you can increase your income to make more money and to balance that out so that you end up being on the positive side of things where your debt is managed. Then the third area, of course, is your savings. And we look at savings from the perspective of retirement, as well as for educational savings. We've got our families that we're taking care of, our kids that we want to send to college. Some may want to go to trade school or even start a business. And we want to make sure that we are putting them in a position to financially be able to handle managing those dreams by setting goals that are realistic and being able to move forward in a real way to manage that and to make those dreams come true. So then we also have our insurance, making sure that we have insurances in place to protect us in case something bad happens. We hope for the best, but we want to plan for the worst so that when something challenging comes up, we don't experience a double tragedy, because now we've got not only the initial challenging experience, but then also we've got this financial burden that is laid on us that we're unable to handle. Statistics have said that, in America these days, a $400 emergency can put a family behind in their finances. And that is something that we need to be conscious of. So do you have $400 saved up in the bank? Do you have $1,000 saved up in the bank so that when you have an emergency, you can handle that? Or do you even have your credit, to the point where you've got your credit card available as a resource so that you would be able to use that in an emergency situation to benefit you? And I'll discuss with you personally on a one-on-one basis or in my sessions that I host, how we're able to manage your debt so that you're able to have a resource through your insurance policy, even to be able to help you to get through the emergency and emotional spending, but also the savings for the long term, where you would be able to save on taxes and you'd be able to reduce the interest that you're paying to the banks. So then finally, we're talking about investments and making sure that, your real estate and your stocks and you're managing your portfolios, that they're handled well. Now, I'm not a stock advisor. I'm not licensed for that, but I do have professionals who I work with, and they'll be coming on to share some tips and some strategies with you for the future to be able to make the progress that you desire. So stick with me. We're just getting started here. I'm looking forward to what we have coming in the future, and I look forward to being here with you. So thank you for taking this time. So we're going to bring in Ren. And how are you, my dear?
I'm good. How are you today?
Good. I'm doing well. Thank you. It's so great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us today here on Mindful Money Moments. And so we're going to talk today just a little bit about what you have done, what you're currently doing with your arts work. And then we're going to talk also about women's health. We have had a conversation previously about the importance of managing women's health and how we need to make sure that we're caring for ourselves in order to stay focused on building our wealth overall.
Right.
Right. So what are you currently doing in terms of your creative expression and how you're handling your business today?
Well, the main thing I'm doing is writing.
Mm-hmm.
That is the main thing I'm doing. I am a poet, and I've been writing off and on all my life, really. But I would say more seriously over the last 20 years. And I'm in the process of putting together a book that will be out soon, um, called Pieces of My Spirit and Soul.
Oh,
And,
nice.
and that book depicts my journey, my life's journey, actually, through the ups and downs of life, like we all have.
Mm-hmm.
And we all, at some point, have to learn how to get through life the best we can and being our best. That's another thing that I want to say. And as I was raising my children, more so as a single mom, it was definitely a struggle. And I started reading a lot first. And
Mm-hmm.
I think reading helped to broaden my vocabulary as far as how I speak, as well as how I write. It was years later before I went back to school. And I'm also presently in school in a bachelor's degree program, working on my major in information technology. So, with school, with work, all of that is a part of my process. And what's running in the background is dealing with um, living through depression. I
Mm-hmm.
will say that. That's the thing that I've had to deal with. And actually, I dealt with it for up until I think my early 40s before I even realized what it was.
Yeah.
Over the decades, I was like, oh, well, I'm just having another bad day. You
Mm-hmm.
know, uh, once I once I knew what it was, then I began to put the pieces together to decide how I was going to live with this. And writing has been my medicine. Poetry has been my medicine. And when I was able to take my writing and my poetry um, to help me, then I wanted to, after a while, I wanted to play it forward and help others. Because I thought about how many years I had lived with this in silence, just going on in everyday life, because life is not going to stop. you know there's always bills to pay, there's always things to do, and if we're going to keep up with the flow of life, we got to get up every morning, put our feet on the ground, and keep going you
Absolutely.
know
Absolutely.
and I chose early on in life that I was going to stay up no matter what I had to go through in life. And I heard you speak of the different types of wealth earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And it is so important that we really deal with our mental wealth and not try to speed past it, or gloss over it as if it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Because it will, if there is a problem, it will continue to exist in the back room of everything else we have going on. And it's like if we don't address that and we don't find a way to remedy that,
Mm-hmm.
we walk around like a ticking time bomb. And another thing that I want to bring out is triggers
Mm-hmm.
that we may or may not know that we're connected to.
Yeah.
And if we have not given the attention to ourselves that we need, which is a part of loving ourselves completely.
Mm-hmm.
This includes the nurturing, this includes the nourishment, this includes loving on ourselves the way we want other people to love us, so
Mm-hmm.
that we can magnify that back out. And
Absolutely.
once we learn how to do that, we will create the love in our relationships all around us. And we will begin to see everybody in our lives, for the most part, treat us the way we want to be treated.
Yeah.
And we'll find ourselves in healthy environments and in healthy relationships.
Absolutely.
And
So
and the go ahead. Go right
yeah.
ahead.
No, so you mentioned a few things here. And I just kind of want to backtrack a little bit to the beginning of your conversation. You were talking about how, when you first started to recognize that you were dealing with depression, it had been ongoing for a number of years.
Right.
So when you initially found, when you thought at the point when you recognized it and you looked back, how many years had gone by that you were really depressed and didn't realize it?
I was in my early 40s
Mm-hmm.
before I actually realized what it was. Matter of fact, I was watching a commercial on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And you know those commercials where they're selling products for depression.
Antidepressants, yeah.
Yeah. And they started naming the symptoms. I was like, that sounds like me. Then I was like,
Yeah.
that sounds like me too.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, I actually got a breakthrough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what happened. The thing is, we either hear somebody else talking about it, or we're having a conversation about it, and we start hearing ourselves talk about it, and we say, okay, wait a minute, maybe that's what's going on. And so by having that conversation, or where you, for instance, sitting in front of the TV, hearing the symptoms being, listed on that commercial, it triggered for you what, well, this sounds familiar. This is what my experience is. So what were you able to do at that point when that sounded familiar to you? What was the decision you made to do at that point?
Well, first of all, it was a wake up epiphany moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I began to retrospect and think about how I had actually been feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought on my worst day, how do I feel? And I could describe that as, and I guess being my most vulnerable, I felt like I was naked and down at the bottom of a well, cold and naked, alone.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a feeling, it's like a black cloud, being over your head or over your house. And it's thick and you can't shake it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't walk it out. You might try and it might be successful, you might not, but I couldn't even dance it out. And I love to dance.
Yeah. Well, because I understand that being depressed is very different from just feeling down or being sad.
Yes.
It's very different from being in a bad mood. It is a chemical imbalance that that triggers the hormones in our body and causes us to feel this way until we're able to treat it. And so one of the things that we have to do is pay attention to the symptoms, but we have to search for the root. And that's something we talked about earlier when we talked about feminine health. So we realized that, this depression that you had may have resulted from what issue that you found or you discovered when you went to your doctors?
Which was multiple fibroid tumors.
Yeah.
And
I would deal with that.
What did you say? I could use.
There's a lot of women who are dealing with that. And there's a lot of women who have the fibroids and don't even realize that that's the cause of the symptoms that they're experiencing because they have, made aware of it. Maybe they didn't sit down in front of the TV and have a commercial listing, the symptoms where they were able to say that this is familiar to them. So how were you able to make that connection between the two?
Well, first of all, my body started to change.
Mm-hmm.
My monthly time started to change.
Mm-hmm.
And, I started dealing with the bloating and, and all of that. And just different, because there was really never any physical pain, because we all deal with it differently.
Yeah.
But it's mainly the changes that took place in my body. And then when the multiple fibroids got to the point where they were so bad that I couldn't leave my house. And this went on for 10 years. 10 years. It was seriously debilitating and depleting at the same time. And I think the first stage of it was the initial shock. Okay, this is what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
This is even before I went to the doctor. And then once I went to the doctor, and I even said to the doctor, I can feel something in the lower part of my stomach. There's something in there. I can feel it, and they confirmed that it was multiple fibroids.
Mm-hmm.
And because of my age, they didn't feel that there was a need for surgery to have them removed, because they explained to me, you're going to be going through menopause soon. So your estrogen level will drop, and that will automatically shrink the fibroids. The doctor said, I'm a firm believer. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I said, I agree with that, because I'm not trying to have a surgery if I don't have to, and that was my choice.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody may not feel that way. Some people may feel like, well, that's what I want. I want to have the surgery. And
Yeah.
for me, it was my choice because of my age. I may have felt differently if I was 20 or 25, because I would have been at the age where my body would have just bounced back.
Yeah.
But I've gotten older. I felt like it would have been more taxing on my body, that may have led to other problems. So
Let me just share a statistic so that our audience understands how broad this challenge really is for women in
yes.
the United States. According to the U.S. National Institutes of Health, 20 to 25% of women of reproductive age have fibroids. And then by
Wow.
the age of 50, up to 80% of Black women and up to 70% of white women have fibroids. So it
Wow.
is actually 10% more likely that Black women would be dealing with a fibroid issue. And some of the symptoms that go along with the fibroid challenge, or having fibroids, is the imbalance of hormones, because the fibroids can throw off your estrogen. And
Mm-hmm.
that estrogen level being out of balance affects a lot and can cause many symptoms. It will cause mood changes, including irritability and rage. It can also cause what we were talking about earlier, which you experienced, a depression.
Yeah.
It also can cause fogginess of mind. So, losing your thought, loss of memory, things like that you experience. And there's even
Right.
younger women. When you start talking about women of reproductive age, we're talking about women in their 20s and 30s as well. So
Exactly. Yeah.
right. So we have to pay attention to what is truly going on with our bodies. And I know I mentioned to you before, but I'll share with our audience as well, that I remember going through what my doctor identified later on, because, it was years into the process before I was able to identify the same thing, having those fibroids, that I had been through what was called perimenopause.
Mm.
And so I experienced hot flashes and everything. And
Yes.
I was still of reproductive age. I didn't lose my ability to have children, and it went away. I think it was between the ages of, I want to say, 32 and 35. But during
Mm.
during those ages was a great challenge for me, because I didn't understand what was going on with my body, and it did affect my mood and my attitude and my activity. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't able to work the way that I had initially worked, because like you have talked about, and I know we'll talk a little bit more about this, is that when our bodies get into our cycle time, that's when we're
Yeah.
mostly affected, and we have to take that time to rest and relax, so that
Mm-hmm.
we can actually heal. So there are so many women who will take that time and just push through, as opposed to really taking the time to set back, because they are the sole providers of themselves. And if they're
There
a
you
single mom,
go.
then they're the sole provider of their children, so they don't have
Because
the opportunity to rest. So
I've
yeah.
I've had that conversation with many women regarding multiple fibroids, and they said I had it too, but I couldn't stop.
Mm-hmm.
I had to find a way to keep going, because they said I had little babies that
Mm-hmm.
were depending on me. And, your jobs don't understand that, you
Right.
know. And another thing I would like to say regarding multiple fibroids, as it relates to any type of dis-ease that could go on with our bodies to throw it out of sync. I looked at what was happening in my life when the multiple fibroids really, came to a head, when they were really threw me off and got to the
Okay.
point where they're at their worst. And I remember that I had gotten a divorce. My car broke down and I got fired from my job, all in the course of like 30 days.
Wow.
And
Wow.
see, I
Yeah, that's a
I
lot.
didn't divorce, my husband. He divorced me, so it came as a shock
Right.
at that time. Losing my job came as a shock at that time. And I remember prior to losing my job, they had created so many new rules and restrictions and stipulations. They even cut my lunch break, down from, it was hour to 40 minutes, saying, you don't need an hour, you need to work and do this. And I was running, I was constantly running because I was a property manager.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very, very stressful time.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like my body was saying, I've had enough.
Mm-hmm.
I've had enough. And it screamed out in that way. So I think, when you were talking about the statistics, and the percentage of, Black women having a percentage of white men, there is the stress factor that we deal with, being in toxic environments constantly, not every once in a while, daily. That is very much a underlying factor that we all need to look at as well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's why we bring this to the surface in our conversation here on Mindful Money Moment, is because it's understanding that when we as women are going through these emotional times, it can be so stressful to us that we end up actually causing more challenges because we're not managing our money properly. Oftentimes we will seek relief through retail therapy. And that retail therapy actually ends up bringing us to more of a
Yeah.
demise. We go out and we spent the money that we needed to spend on bills or whatever. And I've done it.
I'm guilty.
Yeah, I've done it, and so it's knowing how that affects us. Then the question is not just what do we do, but how do we pull ourselves back from that? And I know that you have found an outlet in
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
artistic expression. And being a writer has been beneficial to you. One of the things that I constantly encourage my clients and my audience is to keep a journal. If you do nothing else, you may not feel like you're a poet or, a journalist or any of those things, but if you do the very least, keep a journal so that you can write down your daily thoughts. And at the very minimum, write down 3 things every day that you
Sounds
are
good.
grateful for. Because having
Yes.
an attitude of gratitude is what's going to keep you full of hope. That's
That's
going
right.
to be positive and motivated for moving forward. So
Yes.
when did you turn to your outlet in writing poetry? When did you start as a poet?
Oh, I started as a poet when my kids were little. But
Mm-hmm.
like I said, that was like off and on. As far as getting serious about it, that has only happened in the last 15 years, I guess
Mm-hmm.
I could say. And it's only been in the last 3 years that I decided, since it was working for me, to pay it forward.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was guided spiritually, I could see as I shared my poetry that it was a blessing to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And Spirit also revealed to me that the work that I do as a poet, the messages that I bring through my poetry, is a form of medicine. Just like it was a form of medicine for me, it will be a form of medicine, and it has been a form of medicine for other people. So I'm in the process of preparing to launch my YouTube channel, which is called Poetess and Insight.
Mm-hmm.
And it will be for the purpose of not only sharing and reciting my poetry and prose and telling poetic stories and things like that, it will also to teach other people to write out what it is that's in here and in here, you know, get it out. And whatever that looks like, no judgment. And then I will also take it a step further. I will be doing competitions,
Oh,
you
nice.
know, where I will challenge those that want to write, those that want to do poetry, to engage in competitions based on prompts, whether they're sentence prompts, word prompts. I may present them with a picture and say, what do you see, you know,
Yeah.
when you look at this picture? But I will use it also as a part of the life coaching and counseling that I do to help them continue their journey of healing and making their dreams come true in life and reaching the point where they get their breakthrough, where they find the ways to put the pieces in their life together, regardless of whether they're dealing with health issues, whether they're dealing with some form of addiction, or whether they're trying to further their career as a writer, an author, a poet, a songwriter.
Yeah.
That's what Poetison Insight is all about. And I'm on a mission, you know, with that. Yeah, specifically with women. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because and that having that creative outlet is a great tool for self-care. You
Yeah.
know, it is us taking an opportunity to release the stress, as you said, to take that pain and to put it onto paper and just to let it go. You know, and what is really beneficial in doing that is that oftentimes when you are able to do that and you release and you put that pen to paper, whether if you keep it to yourself and you keep it private, that's fine. You know, maybe you don't want
Yeah.
to share anything with anyone. There may be some things not to share, you know,
Right.
but that is a release nonetheless. But then if you have something that you're able to share with others, and then you realize the connection that other people feel and the encouragement that you can provide by boosting others up by your writing and sharing your creativity, that is absolutely huge. That is where we're able to make an impact.
Right.
And
And
that's
I
where
would
we
like to,
make a difference.
oh, I'm sorry. I
No,
would
but
like to give you an example of the writing with my personal journey. When I first decided I wanted to do a book, um, and I was just brainstorming and doing rough drafts, and I was like, eventually it'll become something. But the first title that I came up with based on my journey at that time was called Space to Breathe, because I felt like, you know, dealing with the fibroids, dealing with the depression, dealing with a bad relationship, I did not have the space to breathe. It was like every time I turned, something was happening. So I said, I'm just going to meditate, I'm going to pray, and I'm also going to write my way through it. The
absolutely.
second level of that, I named it Five Flights in My Dreams, because I began to get into what is it that I want to do in life? What is it that I want? You know, how do I want to advance myself? And not just, I'm not talking about career wise, I'm talking about in every area of my life. Physical health, what does that look like for me? You know, spiritual, how does my social relationships look? That's what Five Flights in My Dreams, the writing that I did there, was all about. And at the stage where I am now, uh, the writings that I'm working on that will become a book is called Pieces of My Spirit and Soul. You know, because I feel like I'm all in, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. So, what our viewers need to know and our audience needs to know as well is that this is not just an exercise for some, in just self-care and building yourself up. What you have an opportunity to do when you're writing, if you do decide to become an author and to actually publish a book, whether it's a book of poetry or short stories or a novel or a biography type of book, then you're able to actually create an income for yourself. Because now you've got a product that you can present to other people and that you can place in the marketplace and have a passive income that you will be able to earn through their purchasing your book, and that will create a foundation for you in building for your financial future as well.
And I want to jump in and say something in relation to writing,
Yes.
As far as a building a future, because a lot of people lost their jobs during COVID. And they had maybe been on that job for quite a period of time and didn't see themselves doing anything else but writing, for example. And there are all types of writing. I named two, writing a book or portrait or being a songwriter. But there are so many different, you can be a content creator because on the internet, content is king. And think about it. When you think about the form of work, you work a whole week or maybe 2 whole weeks, and then you get paid. And you will never be paid for those 14 days again. You write a book one time, and by way of residual income, you will get paid for that one time that you wrote it again and again and again. Yes.
Absolutely. And so we see that there are a number of authors coming out from the COVID lockdown, the quarantine time, where many people have had an opportunity to do that writing. And I feel like that is such an indication of the therapy that we have actually, the self-therapy that we've been able to give, in the sense that, they were able to focus in on doing something positive during the pandemic and during this challenging time. So while many their whole lives were changing. Of course, the norm has been adjusted. The paradigm has shifted. We're looking at things from a whole new virtual world,
Right.
and, many people having their podcasts and their live broadcasts similar to this one, but then being able to have the opportunity to put pen to paper and have something that will last literally forever. It's something that will become your way of leaving a mark on the world, saying, I was here, first of all, and to share your experience in a way that no one else can.
That is so true.
Know your story. I think about things like the book, like 12 Years a Slave. If that man had not written that book about his personal journey, we would never know what he had experienced and understand from such a personal perspective.
Yes.
What he went through, and so the same thing for yourself, having experienced those major traumas in such a short period of time. I experienced, 3 traumas within less than 3 years, but you're talking about a 30-day turnaround. That is extremely stressful for someone. So the question then is, Renee, how were you able to find your way through that so that you were able to really think and to manage yourself financially? Because you talked about losing your job. Did you have the protections in place that would, give you the income that you needed? And if not, then how were you able to find a way to survive during that time? I mean, that was very challenging for you financially.
It was, and I had help, from friends, but I also got unemployment. And then I started working because I couldn't just wait and look for the job and wait for the job. I could look for it, but not wait for the job, maybe another property management job. So I took a waitress job, and I lived off of being a waitress, unemployment, which I think lasted for another year and a half before I started getting help, from friends until I was able to start my next position. God just really stepped in and helped out. But I want to comment on what I went through in such a short period of time.
Yes.
that looking back on, it's like, wow, that's a lot. But and a lot of us go through this and we compact it. I didn't see it as being a lot then because my focus on, I got to keep going
Mm-hmm.
and I got to get this done and I got to get. And so when you're distracted by the external things in life and you're not paying attention to how it's really affecting your body, you can be blindsided when the body just decides to say, hey, I've had enough. I'm going to break down. I'm not going to work the way I normally work anymore because you're not taking care of me. But overall, you're not paying attention to the signs, and we can put a lot on the body. And a lot of times it's not just physical, it's stress, like I said, it's energy coming from the outside, it's fears, that translate within
Mm-hmm.
in so many different ways, and it's also negative thinking,
Yeah.
the things that we tell ourselves, like, I can't do this, and I'm not going to make it, and I don't think this is going to work out, and I'm not good enough, and why was I so stupid? And, things like that also takes its toll as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. And it can be very challenging. One of the things that I encourage my clients to do is to pause. We
Mm.
start with the
Mm.
writing, but then when you deal with the writing, that's just a way for you to be able to see what you're dealing with. Now, what you've seen, what you're dealing with, we encourage, of course, that, when you're suffering from depression or you're dealing with mental and emotional challenges, that you seek professional help. I'm
Exactly.
not a licensed counselor where that's concerned. And so the advice that we're giving here is simply from our
Mhm.
experience,
Exactly.
and being able to say, we have been through the time where it was being ignored. We've seen the results of ignoring the issue and how it can be challenging and how our bodies will react to say, no, 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 you're not going to ignore me. You
Exactly.
take care of this, and then getting to the point where you have to take care of it, and being able to work through that. But giving hope to women who may be dealing with a situation like that right now, and recognizing that you're not alone. You are not alone in dealing with
Yes.
these challenges.
Yes.
There are so many women, and it doesn't get spoken about. It's being spoken about more now than it was, I know even 10 years ago, during the time
Uh-huh.
I was dealing with something like that myself. And certainly years ago when you were dealing with it personally, we have started to talk more about it, but we've got to still continue to raise our level of consciousness. And so my job and where I am licensed is that I'm able to provide a financial support to these women in that situation, and
Beautiful.
before that situation comes around. So as a licensed
Exactly.
life and health insurance agent, I can work with you not only to make sure that you have the health insurance coverage that you need, but also to make sure that you're getting the life insurance coverage, which could provide, and the disability coverage, which could provide the cushion that you need
Mm-hmm.
should a situation like that come up, and you would be able to have the income, which is going to allow you to not feel so much stress while you're caring for yourself.
Yes.
Oftentimes it's because we don't have the money that we continue to push through, and we make our physical health worse rather than taking the time that we need to really heal and recuperate and seeing the improvement to get better. And so there's so many things that we need to be conscious of, where that's concerned, in terms of women's health, and making sure that we're focusing in on taking care of ourselves so that we can really build a foundation of wealth that will support us through our future. The goal here is to get out of debt and retire
Mm-hmm.
tax free, so that we can experience self sufficiency during a time when we're unable to earn an income.
Right.
The greatest fear, I think, of women these days, and I know, honestly, I know of women these days, is not having enough money when they get to a point where they're unable to earn an income. you know.
But another thing is everything you've shared when I was going through what I went through, I
Yes,
didn't know that that option was available.
that's it, exactly.
I had heard of insurance,
Mm-hmm.
but it was life and it was death.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only type of insurance. Anything else, I had not heard of that.
Yeah,
So it's important that that information continues to get out there as well so that we can know our options and then we can make our own choices based on that.
absolutely. Absolutely. And that's part of my motivation. So I talked to you earlier about a situation that was kind of very sensitive to me. And what stood out to me in this medical situation was that I went to a doctor, and the first option he gave me was that I had the option to do absolutely nothing at all. And I was so empowered at hearing that he would give me that option, because what it showed me was that he respected that this was my body and I needed to be the one to make the choice of what to
Mhm.
do. You know, dealing with a fibroid situation is challenging, you know, because you don't know what's going on. I had one doctor who knew that I had the fibroids, and when I started having pain with them, she says, "Oh, well, I didn't tell you about them before because, you know, it wasn't bothering you." And my thing is, well, you know, regardless of whether it's bothering me or not, it's my body. You need to let me know that something like this could even exist. Like, I didn't even know what, you know, what is fibroids? You know, that doesn't, what is that? You know, what does that mean?
Yeah,
You know, where do they come
yeah.
from? How do I get rid of them? And there's a
Mhm.
few simple things that we can do in caring for our physical health, including eating a healthier diet, as well
Yes.
doing exercise that can have a significant impact on reducing the fibroids in our body and helping us to manage our hormone
Mhm.
balance and to manage, you know, how we're able to continue to grow in a healthy way so that we can keep our minds clear and stay focused
Right.
on building our
Mhm.
wealth for the future,
That
you know,
is true.
and taking those options. And so the first thing to do is to start with a journal.
Yes.
You're going to be our poetry guide here on my
Yes. Okay.
community. We're going
I'll
to
be
be
glad to.
looking for that YouTube channel to be established. We're going to look for your giveaways and your contests and the games that we get to play over there, because those are going to be the things that will lighten us up, you know, help
Yes.
relieve some of that stress and help us to recognize that we can let go of the pain that we may be carrying with us, which
Mhm.
does show up in physical ailments.
Yes.
And we
That
have to
is so
recognize
true.
that as well. You know,
That
so
is so
then I want to show folks how they can get in contact with you. You can reach Renee through her email or on the telephone. Renee McDade is from originally from Tennessee, but she's living out in Georgia right now.
yes.
You're in a little town. Where's that little town in Georgia that you?
Athens,
Athens.
Georgia.
Okay, so you're in Athens, Georgia. All right, so that's
Yes.
not such a little town. I was thinking about Lithonia. We talked about that a little,
Yeah.
a little outside of Atlanta. But
Yeah.
they're in Athens, Georgia, being able to enjoy, you know, your life and times there with your writing and your poetry, but being able to reach out on a grander level through our community and being able
Mhm.
to show women how they can find some relief in their writing by developing their poetry and even competing to win prizes and
Yes,
giveaways
yes,
and things like
yes. You
that.
want to do that. You want to do
Absolutely.
that.
And the thing
So
is,
stay
okay,
tuned.
so when they win that prize and they didn't know what to do with that prize money, that's where I come in.
Okay.
You get that prize money, then you go to my website and you look at the plan, and we go ahead and set up a financial plan what to do with that money so that
That's
it
right.
works for you. Because the goal
Exactly.
here is not to continue working so hard for our money, but we've got to get our money working for us in order to get
That's
to that place.
that's right. Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I thank you so much for taking this time to be with me this evening, Renee.
It's
It's been
my
awesome talking
pleasure.
to you. I thank you for
Yes.
sharing your story. You shared some very intimate details with us. But this is what helps our community to recognize that we need to have these conversations
Mhm.
more often.
We
You know?
do.
And we need to
Mhm.
be able to have, if we can't talk to our family about it, we need to have a circle of friends who we can go to, those that we, you know, can trust and who will guide us and look out for our best interests and listen to what we have to
Yes.
say, and even contribute some encouraging guidance for us to get the help and the assistance we need, whether it's dealing with the emotional, the mental, the spiritual,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
physical, or the financial. Because
Right.
those 5 areas of life are absolutely key for us to maintain a good, solid balance.
Yes. Yes.
And so we want to continue to encourage that. So you can also remember to get in contact with me at MarimorLife Financial Services. You can find our website, as well as you can reach me on the phone. So you can send a text message or make a phone call. And I will be happy to guide you, to educate you first, to guide you through the process, and then to support you as you move along the process of regaining your financial power and being able to stand on a firm foundation. So thank you again, Renee. Now, you said your book is going to be coming out when? Do
It
you have?
will be out, so I haven't earmarked a final date, but
Okay.
it should be out by June. It should be out by June of
All
this
right. No
this
problem.
June.
Yes.
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 And I
And so
want
you
to
can
take
make those announcements on social media. So where can folks find
mhm.
you on Instagram or Facebook?
On Instagram, Queen Bee of Words. That's
Mm-hmm.
my name on Instagram. And on Facebook, it's Renee, Renee. That's my name on Facebook. So they can find me that way. I want to take the opportunity to thank you so much for having me on the show. I do appreciate that.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
because I do want to get the word out. And this is how I add value to the life of others. So thank you, Kevette
Absolutely.
Minor Kane.
You're
Yes.
welcome. It's absolutely my pleasure to have you here, and we look forward to being able to speak again in the future.
Yeah.
Host more conversations like this, and even being able to have some conferences and some, panel discussions where we talk
Oh,
more
yes.
how women's health and how we manage our health will lead us to wealth, and being able to manage ourselves so that we're able to set a firm foundation for our finances and to gain our financial power, regain our financial power, and to set up our future. And
Sounds
so
great.
all those things, but it all begins with managing our emotions. You
It
know,
does.
recognizing how our thoughts affect our feelings, affect our connections, affect our
Hmm.
physical being, and have an eventual trickle down effect on our financial wellness.
That is
And
so
we want to
true.
pay attention to how all those things are linked in, and just continue to reach out to me here on Facebook or on YouTube. You can leave your
Yes.
comments and your questions down below, either for myself or Renee. I will be able to answer those questions and comments for you, either in the comments, or if you leave, your information, we'll be able to reach out to you. And we also look forward to answering some of those questions in future shows. So stick with me here. Thank you so much, Renee. Have a wonderful evening, and I will talk to you again soon. All right.
All
Take
right. Bye bye.
care. Bye. See you. So I just want to thank you all for being here this evening with me for a mindful money moment with MarimorLife LLC. It is absolutely an opportunity for us to reflect on how we are managing our emotions and how our emotions affect our financial management, so that we're able to make better decisions to experience the life that we have dreamed of, and creating that reality, being able to understand what our choices and our options are for managing our health and managing our wealth, being conscious and being responsible for taking care of ourselves. I want to end with a quote um, from Judy Collins. She says that women have been trained to have a rescue mentality, but the truth is that no one is coming. And so I want to remind you of that, because it is up to us to take care of us. But I am here to give you the encouragement that you need. And so I hope that you will benefit from the words that have been shared for my guests, as well as for myself, and being mindful in managing your money for every moment. So enjoy your evening. Have a wonderful week. I will look forward to seeing you every Monday. Now our time is 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can also connect with me on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. On Instagram and Facebook, I usually include in my stories my activities for the week, where you can find me. You can look for me on different platforms where I'll be speaking and sharing more information from different perspectives and answering other questions where there's other hosts, and I'll have an opportunity to tell you a little bit more about my background story. If you'd like to know more, about that, I kind of pull away from sharing too much personally here because I wanted to be more about my guests and about you and your benefit. But if you'd like to hear more about my story, feel free to ask questions, and I will ask those questions as they come through. But I look forward to speaking with you and sharing with you again in the future. You all have a wonderful evening and enjoy every mindful money moment. Take care.